All right, good afternoon, everyone. FridayNightVictors.com. Chris Schultz here, along with my partner Gary Hoff. And this is the first of our 2 weekly shows that we do. Normally we do a weekly wrap up, which would have been a week 4 weekly wrap up, but we decided to change things up a little bit. Everybody knows what the scores were. So what we're going to do real quick, we will discuss the 2 games that we were at, because Gary called the game between Flat Rock and SMCC, and then I was at the game where Milan traveled over to Riverview. Talked a little bit about those games, but what we wanted to do is get into some players, especially those from the Huron League. I've been covering the Huron League since 2009. Gary came on board last year, and we want to talk about some of the players and kind of reach out to, those people who've been following us forever, and talk about some of the players in the Huron League. So welcome to your basement again, Gary.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me here.
Sure.
And why don't we talk about that 14-12 Flat Rock victory over St. Mary Catholic Central?
Yeah, great win for Flat Rock, first since 2001, and I believe now the overall series record since 1950 anyway is 47-11-1. So the fans at Airport were happy. The parents, the Flat Rock. Yeah, I love my Jets. I just can't get the Jets off my mind. But another great win this week, by the way. Congrats, Jets. But Flat Rock, yes. So big game for Flat Rock. Big game for CC, really. CC needed this one to stem the tide in this early part of the schedule for them. The first 5 were extremely hard. The toughest teams.
You've been saying all along they could have, before the season, they could have started 0-5.
0-5.
And I think what threw people off was the big win over Powama, Westphalia.
Right. And that was a big win.
Yeah, for sure.
But big win for both teams. Flat Rock, just because they're playing CC, haven't beaten them since 2001, so it's automatically a big game. It's usually a big game for everybody. Everyone gets up for CC. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And, Flat Rock, CC went up on them early, 6-0, mixed the extra point. They just long drive, 4 yards, 5 yards, staying ahead of the sticks, as we say, and playing the way they want to play. And Flat Rock answered towards later in the half. They ran a lot of Wildcat with Spencer, Kanan Spencer, number 25. He did a real nice job with the Wildcat, kind of picking his way, finding his blockers. Did a real nice job. Dotson didn't play in the first half, however, he did play in the second half. I know a lot of the quarterback for Flat Rock, Jacob Dotson. I know a lot of people. The truth, yeah. I know a lot of people were saying on the blog, commenting how big of a difference maker he is, and I've been saying that all year. The team comes and goes with Dotson, so I'm the first to admit and agree that he is a difference maker for Flat Rock. They have a lot of good players, but he makes the team go in a lot of aspects. But the team was playing well even without him. Flat Rock's defense was solid. It's been solid all year. And, they just ran a little bit of a different offense. Buck Ream reached into his bag of tricks, and he had the team prepared without Dotson for a half. And it was just a knock-em-out brawl against 2 teams that badly needed a win, really. I mean, Flat Rock didn't want to lose a game to Central that they feel like they could have won at home, and they can win the first win against Central in a long time. So it was a big game for them. And Central, they played their hearts out. They were prepared. Coach Kip had them prepared 100%. And, it was just a whole bunch of Sage Daniels throughout the game. He was great. He had, 100 and how many yards?
However many yards. He's up for our quality performer of the week. He had a great game.
He had to have, I know, we had it written down. It's 180-some yards. And I know he's closer to 200. He had but one long run that he ended up fumbling towards the end. And that's one of the few of the comments were saying, well, if he wouldn't have fumbled the ball, well, fumbles happen. SMCC threw an interception when they were winning 6-0, so those things kind of even out. But Sage Daniels, to me, was the difference. He left a lot of Falcons, diving at him. I remember one play, literally 3 or 4 defenders for SMCC just whiffed because he was that elusive, really shifty, and he's probably about 5'9", 170 maybe.
That sounds about right. Pretty
strong kid. Yeah. He's got his speed under him. He keeps his speed under him, and he's shifty. He can go either way. He plants his feet nicely. And he just had a great game. It had to be his best game of the year, although he's capable of doing that any week. But he brought it against my SMCC homeboys. Unfortunately for
So
them.
that's a win for Chris here, I guess.
Yes, that's a win for Chris.
They're few and far between over the years. But how was the crowd? Was it a big crowd over there?
It was a pretty darn good crowd. CC always
Travels well.
They travel well, and I was on the Flat Rock side, up in the press box, and yeah, it was packed through and through. There was people on the outskirts of the fence, as you would expect. They're excited in Flat Rock, and they should be.
The 3-1.
Yeah, and they can win every game they play. Really, here on out. If
best start since 2007. So, all right. So, big win for the Rams, 14-12.
Big wins. Both teams were prepared. Both teams came to play like they needed to come to play, and it was just a great game. SMCC missed a 2-point conversion that I originally on air called good. I believe it was Richie got tripped up, and as he was crossing and he landed, the ball was in. He landed on the goal line. The ball was in, but I think the referee called the knee down first. So
they didn't go to the booth? They didn't check
go
the
to
camera?
booth. Didn't go to the booth. The rep was right there. They're getting paid. You go with the rep, obviously.
Absolutely.
So, but it might have been the right call. I thought he was in initially, but I didn't see the knee down. But I wasn't necessarily looking for that. I just was looking at the ball, and but that ended up being a big play, of course. But it was a great high school football game in Flat Rock, and they're happy in Flat Rock, and they're a real good team.
Okay. All right. The game I went to was the Milan at Riverview game, and I was expecting a good game. And you had said if the same Riverview team shows up that played SMCC the week before, they would give Milan a game. Well, that's the team that showed up. Now, they were minus a few players, a couple guys out with some injuries. And I know everybody goes through injuries, but Kaz Sarnacki was out for that game. Kyle Naif was out for the Pirates.
Naif tore up SMCC
as well. So those, I was thinking, gosh, this might not be good for Riverview, but Riverview kind of got out on them early, and Milan's Milan. They've got a great line. They've got some good offensive players, although not the ones they've had in the past.
Right.
And you could see they're just not quite where they've been. And quite honestly, Riverview just beat them up.
Yeah.
They just out-physical them.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, and as good as Milan's line is, when you line up those guys, especially led by Fertney, I was surprised at what Riverview was able to do. And it's not a knock on Milan. It's just it's praise of the Pirates and Coach McLaughlin's team. They really earned that victory. And the score was 29-18. In my opinion, it was over at halftime from what I saw. I didn't think there was any way that Milan would come back and win that game, even though they are a very good second half team and Hoskins does a great job. I just thought the way the game was going, quite a few different Milan players went out of the game with injuries, but they did come back. Their quarterback went out at the late in the game, and it didn't look good. I don't know what's going on with him, but I can't say enough about Riverview. That was a huge win for them, and it leaves a couple teams in the league with one loss, and then that leaves Huron on top as the only undefeated team. And some people have said the league champ might have 2 losses.
Possible.
If that's the case, it'd be a big tie. I'm assuming, but I don't know if that happens. But anyways, that was the game I saw. I enjoyed that there. Thanks to all the Milan and Riverview folks that said hi. That's nice of you. I appreciate you. Reading and watching.
Right.
So anyways, that's a wrap up on our 2 games, and we want to talk about some of the players. And I'm going to have to get out my glasses here and look at some of this. But we want to give a shout out. People have said, certain kids are always getting their names tossed out there. And it's just the nature of the beast that the guys who run the ball, the guys who throw the ball, the guys who score the points in any sport are going to get the credit.
Right.
My 2 points per game never got me in the paper in high school basketball. But I'd set 8 to 10 screens, that led to baskets. It's just the nature of the beast. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. So let's start with Airport. And we keep talking about how good their backfield is.
Sure.
3 good backs. They've got a good quarterback. But I think the key to Airport and their success this year, to go along with their coach, Jim Duffy's doing a great job. I think we need to make sure we say that. But their line, and they've got most of their line back from last year, a bunch of seniors. Zeke Bergmoser, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, 6'2", 250 pounds. on the offensive line. Sam Johnson is their center, 6'2", about 270. You got Logan Mays. You got Tommy Shimanavar. There's 4 guys right there who are opening holes for their elusive backs. And, you really win in the trenches. And when you've got that many kids coming back on the offensive line, they've got a lot of kids back on the defensive line as well. And they try to platoon. It's led to some success for Airport.
Right.
So I wanted to give a shout out there. So why don't we dive into, let's dive into Flat Rock. I'll let you talk about this, but I want to throw a couple names out there for Flat Rock. First off is Mason Hamilton, offensive tackle, defensive end. I think he bounces around where he plays. 4-year starter. You got any thoughts on Mason? I know you called the game the other day. Yeah,
he played real well. The whole defense from Flat Rock played well. Mason Hamilton was one of them, of course, Tayeb. And, he's a load to handle. They got penetration quite a few plays. SMCC was lucky to not lose yardage on a lot of plays that they ran. They broke some tackles in the backfield and ended up picking up some positive yards. But they had penetration, including Hamilton, all night long, and almost blocked every punt that SMCC kicked.
Okay.
So they were getting penetration. Defensive line was awesome.
He also plays on the offensive line, so you've got Tayeb at guard, Hamilton at tackle, and then you throw in Blake Monty, who's the tight end over there, and they seem to run that way a little bit as well. So good 4-year player there. The other guy, Gary had mentioned earlier in the game, is Kanan Spencer. He's 5'8", 155-pound running back and defensive back, and he's got good quickness. He's a lot like Sage Daniels, maybe not as powerful, but quick. And the key for him is he's new to Flat Rock. He went to Northwest High School in McDermott, Ohio last year, and he was the captain of the team as a junior, and he was also a starter as a sophomore down there. So it's nice that a kid like him would move in. Sure. And it was mentioned to me before the season, hey, we've got this kid who moved in who's pretty doggone good. I think we're starting to see what type of player he is, because he's a player you mentioned. He's got any thoughts on him in general?
He impressed me with his toughness. They were running the Wildcat, where it's just basically you snap it to him and he follows his running backs in through the hole and his linemen in through the hole. And he was tough. He got tough yardage, and he has some elusiveness to him, but mainly his toughness is what impressed me the most. He got a lot of tough yards.
Okay. All right, let's jump into Grozeal. Grozeal's 1-3 this year. They're struggling a little bit, but they've given, they gave Airport all they could handle. They beat Jefferson. They gave Huron all they could handle for a half. But one of the things, Grozeal graduated a lot of kids, and it's like, where do you find the players? Well, right now their 2 leading tacklers are 2 young linebackers who are sophomores, and I want to get their names out there. John Blanzy, who's 6'1", 205 pounds. He plays on the offensive line as well as linebacker. He's averaged at 12 tackles a game. He's already got 3 fumble recoveries this year. And then sophomore Josh Zenin. He's a linebacker, guard, 5'11", 200 pounds. Something to look forward to in the future over there at Grozeal. Blanzy's a name that you probably recognized last year. He had a brother who was on the team, played a lot for the Red Devils. So just a couple of young kids over there at Grozeal for Coach John Bodner.
Yeah, it's not really all that surprising to us to have a team like Grozeal, who doesn't have a lot of players, missing Harwood at least 2 of the games, maybe 3, who's one of their better players. It's not too surprising to us that they are competing and playing at a pretty high level with a young team with not a lot of experience. We kind of thought that would happen. And when you double that and go on the island and play, that's a tough place to play. And that's not going to be an easy win for anybody.
Right. I would agree with that. All right, let's. Why don't we jump into Huron? We could talk about a couple of those players over there, guys that really haven't gotten their name mentioned.
Those are your homeboys.
Yeah, well, I live over there, and my son went to high school there. I live in the big metropolis of Waltz, Michigan.
I have to tell you, it just reminded me. I was, speaking of Waltz, I was on the Vince's food truck, Vince's On The Go food truck, who was a sponsor of ours, and ran into a kid. I talked to him for a little bit, youngster. I think there were 2 kids in 6th grade. I said, "Where do you go to school?" He said, "St. John's." Well, I went to St. John's in Monroe. Right? So I just assumed, because we were in Monroe. And I'm talking, hey, do you know this person, you know this teacher? And no. And I said, wow, okay. You really go to St. John's? He says, oh, Waltz. I said, oh, Waltz. I said, well, do you know Chris Schultz? He says, yes, I know Chris
There you
Schultz.
go, the Mighty
you're
Wildcats.
famous. You're famous over there.
Absolutely.
There
I
you
went
go.
there as well. So did
Yeah.
my kids.
There you go.
So, all right, let's talk about Huron. And I think the first person you need to talk about defensively is Mike Mitchell. He's a linebacker, 5'10", 190 pounds. He was the second leading tackler last year for the Chiefs, but he's leading the way this year. He's leading the defense. He's a good, solid linebacker for them. And then another name we haven't talked about much this year, and he's kind of had his roles changed, and that is senior Brett McKay.
Yeah.
He was their quarterback last year. Very good quarterback. But with Coach Spees coming in and Merrick Spees being a pretty good quarterback himself, it was, you can compete for the quarterback job. If you win it, you're going to play quarterback. Or I could use you as a utility guy,
Right.
and he's been running the ball, he's been catching the ball, and he's playing defense for them. And the nice thing about Brett McKay, he always brought an edge as a quarterback, even though he wasn't big in stature. But he has that edge to him defensively. And he does a lot of things for the Chief. I think that's really valuable, the position they have him in right now.
It says a lot about McKay as well. Like you said, the quarterback position, that's the key position in any sport, really. You get all the girls, the quarterback position. Because I was a quarterback, I didn't get any girls. But, so it's kind of the highlight position on the football team.
Sure.
You want to be the quarterback. So it says a lot about his character that he was willing to step down from that spot and assume a different role. And he plays very well. And, him stepping down from the quarterback spot helped Huron quite a bit because of how well he's doing in other positions. It just gives him great depth. And like we always say, Huron is deep.
They're deep, and they're off to their first 4-0 start in school history. Let's go over to Jefferson here, and let's talk about them. Even though they're 0-4, I know I posted this. I was rooting for the Bears when I heard the score coming across, just because I want them to get a win, and I want Gene Janot to get his first win. And it's nothing against Airport. It'd been nice to see. Mitchell Payment is quietly having a nice year from his running back position. He's always been a very good defensive back. Senior year, he's been a starter since his sophomore year. And then, one of the better two-way linemen in the league is 6 foot, 1 or 2, 225-pound Thomas Eads. He's a good, solid player as well. So we want to make sure we got a shout out to talk about those guys, because those guys could play for anybody in the league.
Absolutely.
And be stars for anybody in the league.
Yeah, growing up as a SMCC homeboy, as Chris likes to say, we were always taught to hate Jefferson. That was always one of our goals. We would, Coach Sanderson would have us make up 5 goals. A team would get together and we'd make up 5 goals. Well, beat Jefferson was always one of the goals. And so we always had a real dislike for Jefferson. But since I've been away, from high school for quite a while now, long time, and I've grown to respect that rivalry, and I've grown to like Jefferson. I actually root for Jefferson, where I would never even imagine that before. But now I do root for Jefferson. I want them to do well, and especially under Coach great guy, and that's a great showing by Jefferson against Airport, who's having a great year thus far.
They really are, yeah.
And that's in Jefferson. I had a friend at the game, and he said Jefferson could have won that game.
They probably deserved to win it.
2 first half turnovers that hurt them, but what can you say about Airport? They're the cardiac kids.
Jeez.
What can you say about them?
I couldn't coach that team. I'd have a heart attack.
But yeah, we root for Jefferson. I just respect the rivalry, and that's where that comes from me.
Sure. Okay, let's dive over to Milan. And you've seen Milan. I saw them the other day. We don't say much about Mike Furtney, but watching him against Riverview the other day, he's so good.
Yeah.
6'5", 290-ish,
right.
offensive tackle, defensive tackle. Riverview kept trying to run the trap, and they couldn't.
Right.
But I know they were just setting up another play,
Right.
and that's because he had Pyle and is it Ben Pyle? Is that? I think it is. Hopefully that's the right name. And Mike Furtney clogging up the middle there.
There's 2 Pyle brothers. They play quite a bit. Yes. Yes.
Well, there was one pile. There's two Becks, I believe it is.
Oh, that's what it
There's
is. Beck.
Pile,
Justin Beck and I can't
Chris,
remember that.
yeah.
Chris Beck. That's right.
So
my apologies.
And I talked to Mike Furtney's parents the other day about him going to Wisconsin. He's very excited to go there, and who wouldn't be, right? A great university, obviously a great football program, very nice people. But anyways, I wanted to talk about Furtney, and then Brandon Lang, who is their second leading tackler right now. He's a wide receiver, defensive back, little guy, 5'9", 150 pounds, solid player for the Big Reds. And who are 2-2 now. So, anyway, you got any other thoughts on Milan? I know you've seen him.
Well, I saw him play. We always mention Hines and Oshbacher. Hasn't gotten a lot of love from us. Although last week we talked a lot about Oshbacher. He's an excellent player.
Yeah, tough kid.
Tough kid. He's going to get looks at the next level as well. He's a junior. Hines definitely will as well. But yeah, how do you block 6'5", 290 of just aggression? How do you block that kid? I would not. I mean, I would be scared to death lining up across from Furtney, 6'5", 290 in the Huron League, and good, right? That's his name. He's not a sloppy 290.
No,
the kid's built like a rock. So,
that's how. Imagine how well Riverview played to be able to physically, because Riverview just runs the ball.
Riverview doesn't have any 290-pound kids. I mean, the kids you mentioned were.
Well, we're going to talk about the Riverview kids here in a minute.
215, 220. So, but they get the job done. It's all technique in that tee anyway. So, they're getting the technique down.
All right, well, let's move on to the SMCC homeboys. I'll let you talk about them because, you're the color guy for the Falcons.
We talked a little bit about them already. Tough loss. I always feel bad for the team that loses a close game, and you feel good for the team that wins. But they're at Flat Rock. A great win for Flat Rock. I'm happy for Flat Rock.
Well, who's playing well for CC?
Richie came to play this week.
John Ritchie, he's a junior.
Junior John Ritchie from his linebacker position, number 8. Goes about 6'1", 180. Okay. He's a hard hitter, and he usually causes a lot of fumbles because he has no regard for his body. He just throws himself into the pile, and you love kids like that. And he had a nice game against Flat Rock. He had double-digit tackles. And I went on the radio, and Duval was out of the game, but I said, however, SMCC did get back their super soft, Sam Cousineau.
Right.
And he goes about 6'1", 205, 210, and he's just a sophomore, but he is an animal. To the Flat Rock people,
is he a linebacker?
Linebacker to the Flat Rock, and he runs the ball. But again, to the Flat Rock people out there, he was the kid with the big cast on his arm because he dislocated his thumb, so he's got a big cast on, and he's the one that made. I'm sure the Flat Rock people saw. He made some really great plays from his linebacker spots. But one right away in the game, the first possession for Flat Rock, he probably ran 40 yards across the field and just got a Flat Rock defender or running back from behind with a huge tackle, just engulfed him. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a great player for SMCC. I know you, was it Terry LaPrade that we talked to?
I played with at Flat Rock.
You're right. Yeah. He said that this Cousineau has a chance of being one of the greatest linebackers of all time at SMCC, and I would agree with that. He has all the talent, all the ability. He had a great game. SMCC missed him, and they have him back. Hopefully that helps them down the road moving forward. Sure. Offensive line did well. Briggs Hale had a nice game. Marding, SMCC starts 2 kids at an offensive line that weigh 170 and 180.
And Marding's a senior, right? Is he playing center? Is that where he's at, or is he at a guard?
No, he's at one of the guards. And Nick Goda, another kid, he's 180 pounds, 5'8", 180. So they're not really big up front. They have a few big kids, but they also rely on kids with technique. We talk about in the T. It's not always one-on-one matchups in the T. That's why you run that offense. It's one unit, and you just try to move the entire defense with one unit as a whole. Okay. And but Martin and Goda, they're doing well.
Okay.
SMCC played well, just didn't pull out the victory. Okay,
and then let's talk about Riverview a little bit. Let me get my glasses out again. Jack Demare, offensive lineman, defensive lineman for the Pirates. 6'2", 215 pounds. I actually played against his father back in the day. His father played at Groszeal for them. I believe it's J.D. DeMar is his father. And then Nathan Maher, 6'1", 205 pounds. He's an offensive defensive lineman as well. Junior Zach Guthrie, running back, linebacker. Guthrie had a big game the other day running the ball. And a lot of people don't know, as good as Riverview played, they had some players out. Kyle Naif was out. He's one of their running backs. He's a
I saw
good
him
player, good defender.
I saw him against SMCC. He had a great game against CC.
And then Kaz Sarnacki, who's a defensive end and tight end for them, did not play as well. So, anyways, so that's the wrap-up show, I guess, this time around. A little bit different. Wanted to talk about a couple games, talk about some players in the Huron League. We'll have our picks later on in the week where we'll pick the games and go from there. And Gary, anything you want to add? I noticed it's 8:34 on our new clock.
Yeah, on the Swatch Watch. How about we throw some sponsor love in there?
Real quick, we're running out of time. I
real
believe
quick,
we love them.
Thank you to Gerwick Nissan. And,
He just got a new car.
Yeah, I'll talk about that for about 10, 15 seconds here. Yeah, I got a new Nissan Rogue SV.
He's going rogue.
And I'm going Rogue. Got rid of my Mustang. I don't miss it yet, but I love the Rogue. Gerwick Nissan completely took care of me over there, and excellent service, top notch. I'm not just saying that because they're our sponsor. I went over there to buy a car, so that's how much I believe in them.
Sure.
And they were great from top to bottom. And Gerwick Nissan, go check them out.
Great. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a good evening.